Well, the challenge has got to start somewhere, so might as well be now. Yeah, that's right. I just literally just watched A Trip to the Moon. These movies are basically as long as YouTube videos. So, A Trip to the Moon came out in 1902, and it's considered to be one of the most iconic science fiction movies ever made. I mean, for me, it's an okay type of movie, but I do like the idea of the special effects and editing that they had to put into this movie. It's kind of hard at first to really follow the storyline, considering there is no line of dialogue. I mean, one thing that silent films are really famous for is for putting up posts every now and then so that the audience knows exactly what the actors are saying. But in this one, we don't exactly have that. They haven't really reached that point in movie history just yet. But anyway, we have a group of scientists in front of a board, and this main guy is trying to convince the others to take this trip to the moon. And eventually it is accepted, and they put together this rocket ship it's not really a rocket ship, it's more as a bullet where they all get inside and they load it in this extremely large gun aimed directly at the moon, and they fire them off. And this is where one of the most iconic scenes in movie history happens, because at first you see kind of like a blurry screen, but then you get a little closer, there's the moon, and the moon suddenly has a face on it, has an actual human face, like he's wearing the moon or something. And the next thing you know, boom, see the spaceship just smack him right in the eye. And then you have this weird looking science fiction story of this frontier that they're walking on, along with actual aliens here that consider them to be enemies. I mean, I assume that they are enemies at first because, well, they kind of run into each other, they get startled, and it looks like they're having a conversation, but then they start fighting. I mean, like I said, with no dialogue really in this movie, it's kind of really hard to follow, for say. However, you can kind of love the visual effects that this movie has to give out, especially when it comes to the year 1902. I mean, it looks like someone who generally wanted to put art and magic into this movie, and it really does show. Just take my point of view, guys. Do not watch this movie in color. I mean, I saw the original black and white version, which is kind of okay for its time, but if you watch it with them trying to put color in the movie, you're just going to be sitting there going, okay, what the heck was I smoking? Because, my gosh, my eyes hurt. But seriously, with the set designs, the costume designs, and all of the creativity that had to making this movie, just make this movie really flow a whole lot better than what it's supposed to. Because there's so much happening on screen. Like, for example, when they're loading the rocket into the gun, you have a long line of girls pushing it into the rocket ship. It's kind of strange, but it's one of those moving moments that definitely keeps this movie moving forward. And the editing process in this movie, I gotta say, is definitely an accomplishment. It's not necessarily editing that we still see today, because we don't have close-ups of people's faces and we don't get to see expressions or move into one person to the next. No, more or less these movies are filmed as if, like for example, when they're having this conversation of going to the moon, it's just basically him standing on one corner, there's a chalkboard, and all these people here just arguing back and forth, and the scene does not stop until they finally get into agreement to go on this crazy mission. And how they do that is that they jump in the air, they cheer, they do all of this, and they're dancing around. It's basically their way of trying to really show the audience exactly what is going on. Now for movies nowadays that don't exactly follow this same formula, it's really, really difficult at first to really understand what is going on. But trust me, you can really admire the effects and the things that they got to do, especially in the year 1902. I mean, 1902, you're still thinking people are still riding horses. They still have wagons. They don't have electricity in every single home, and cars are a rarity, and planes were just invented, and the Titanic hasn't even been built yet. All of this and more, and yet a movie like this with its kind of visuals, it's definitely a major step up from the previous movies that were made in the 19th century. I mean, if you look at movies from the 19th century, there's not a whole lot of them left, but the most iconic one was a train moving into a station and watching people get off it. So, and for those movies, they're only one shot. So what I was just talking about, which is the longest movie in the 19th century, it's all one shot. There is no editing to it. And the fact that this movie puts editing as well as visual effects is basically 2 steps of a major accomplishment. So I will say A Trip to the Moon, it may seem a little bit funky at first because you won't really understand right away exactly what is going on, but its visual effects, its design, its art style, I really do admire. So I will say A Trip to the Moon is worth watching at least once. So guys, A Trip to the Moon, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Whatever you thought, comment them down below. Also, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share my videos as much as possible. Tell everybody about my challenge that I'm doing right now so I can finally challenge other YouTubers to do the same challenge. And I'll see you in the next video.